Hello and welcome. I'm Egusa Egumbo and you're watching Energy and You, a weekly show that brings you developments in the energy space, especially Nigeria's oil and gas sector, with focus on Nigeria's national petroleum company, NNPC Limited. On our show today, we'll bring you an update of the AKK project, plus highlights from the just concluded 6th Nigeria International Energy Summit, which took place in Abuja. Before we bring you those highlights and more, here are some top stories making the round in the energy space. Oil prices steadied today as investors considered strong holiday travel in China that could boost fuel demand against the prospect of rising interest rates elsewhere, slowing economic growth. Brent crude fell 7 cents to $82.66 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude eased 6 cents to $78.70 a barrel. Global diesel margins have slumped by about half since February, dragging on refiners' profits as Russian exports continue despite sanctions. Western sanctions and price caps on Russian crude and oil introduced in December and February had been expected to tighten oil supplies globally. However, Russia continues to ship out low-cost oil, enabling its biggest clients, India and China, to boost their refining output and exports. It's been reported that Russia is sending out its oil products in high volumes to oil hubs to be stored and re-exported worldwide. Meanwhile, U.S. fuel makers are expected to post higher first-quarter earnings in the coming days on strong fuel exports and margins, even as domestic diesel demand slumped during the period. And out to some cheering news. A significant proportion of Nigeria's gas and electricity needs will in no time be adequately catered for. This is coming on the heels of the high-level gas project underway along the Abuja-Kaduna-Kano corridor. We got an update on the level of completion of the project, generally referred to as the AKK gas pipeline project, during an assessment visit by management of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited.
Amidst recent doubts and speculations on the abandonment of the AKK project, NNPC Limited has assured that the project is at 70% completion and will be energized by the third quarter of 2023.
Once you are able to complete the welding and put certain basic installation, you can actually flow gas into this line, and as other parts of the project continue to be delivered. This line will flow 2 billion scoop of gas. And what this means is that you are delivering 2 billion scoop of gas every day into this line, powering industries, powering power plants, creating gas-based industries. And this is the ultimate objective.
Leading a team of top management and members of the press on a tour of the Abuja section of the project, NNPC Limited's Group Chief Executive Officer, Mele Kyari, emphasized the importance of the project to the nation's socio-economic development, asserting that NNPC Limited is solely responsible for the project's funding and will ensure its completion.
It is of immense proportion of value to our country and to the socio-economic growth of our country. We know that this is a must-deliver project. This project has not stopped for one day. We are continuing to fund it despite the fact that we do not have third-party financing on this project. We have so far spent over $1.1 billion on this project from our cash flow. We are a very different company today. We are a commercial company. We have intercompany loans within our company now. This company can fund this project.
He highlighted security challenges faced in the course of the project's execution and expressed gratitude to the various government security agencies for ensuring personnel safety.
We have lost men and we are so sorry to their families. We continue to share their grief. But despite this, we have gotten massive support from our government security agencies, the Nigerian Army, the Department of State Service, and all other government securities to make sure that our workers work safely and that we're also able to continue this project uninterrupted. And we're most grateful to this team, and we assure Nigerians that this project is different. This project will be delivered.
Speaking on the economic and environmental implications of the project, Chief Technical Officer of the contracting firm Oilserve Limited, Chidozie Obi, stated that the project not only promises massive employment for Nigerians, but currently has over 1,500 persons on several sites across the AKK corridor.
We have 15 active crews that are independent working. As you came to this place, you saw them working. So we are working full blast, non-stop. It's a massive development. For instance, in OISAF, this project, we're already employing more than 1,000 Nigerians. And then our subcontractors, when you now add their own employment aspects, get up to 1,500. And then at the end of the project, it will trigger and support economic development, that we support industries that will give employment to Nigerians and then their dependents.
The AKK Pipeline and Stations project comprises of a 614-kilometer long natural gas pipeline being developed by NNPC Limited. Connecting with different pipeline networks across the country, the project will, upon completion, deliver 2 billion standard cubic feet of gas per day, powering industries and generation plants. It is projected to support the nation's electricity supply by 3,650 megawatts, with Abuja and Kano plants each generating 1,350 megawatts each and 900 megawatts from Kaduna.
This project, as the GMD has said, will trigger a lot of development after its completion by stopping gas flaring, then supporting gas-based industry, power generation, fertilizer company, and so forth.
The AKK project site, which transverses rivers, railways and other existing pipelines, is a beehive of activities, serving a mixed range of people, from crew members to project leaders, heavy-duty equipment and a blend of security personnel. Together with NNPC Limited, all these stakeholders are fully committed to ensuring that the line is energized by September 2023.
Rethinking the way we power our lives, economies, and the world featured extensively in several discussion sessions at the recently concluded Nigeria International Energy Summit 2023. Most, if not all, of the discussions were tied to the theme, sharing global perspectives for a sustainable energy future. One of such was the panel on energy access, mix, and innovation showcase. Take a look.
The theme of the summit was set in motion on this day by the Vice President of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo.
It must not be a future where Africa remains at the bottom of the food chain in the brave new world of sustainable energy. Certainly not. But we must admit that today we have the largest number of individuals without access to power, the largest number of people without access to clean cooking fuels. And we need rapid industrialization to get millions of our people out of poverty. And we must do all of this without worsening the global warming situation.
The message reverberated through and had panelists bringing up some hard truths.
We cannot achieve the 2030 goals. There's nothing we can do now in 2023 that within 7 years we'll be able to make those markers. But we can accelerate our progress towards those goals. And that is the context in which I need us to start to look at these things. One of the largest utilization of the fuels that we produce is, goes to automobiles, the transport sector. Right now, we have the cars that use combustible engines, with conventional fossil fuels. There's a sales ban by a few of these companies. If you fast forward to 2030 and then even 2045, in the next 20 years, most of the brands that we'll know would have banned the sales of vehicles that use conventional fuels. And for some of them, they would even stop the development completely. So we really need to hurry up.
The floor was subsequently opened for a debate on Africa's path to prosperity and a sustainable energy future. For the Executive Vice President, Gas, Power and New Energy at NNPC Limited, he opined that the discussion on energy transition must be defined to suit Nigeria's peculiarities.
I don't need light in Nigeria. I need energy that will power the instruments, the machines, the equipment that will generate employment for the teeming youths that we have in this country. If you take electricity to the villages and just put it for them, that is not what I want. So if I cannot go into the productive sector to produce goods and services for the people, I will just be using that light that I will generate from sunlight and wind to just give them to iron their clothes that will be imported from outside. And I believe that our per capita income will never grow when we go along that stride. So for us, energy transition within the developing countries and even some other parts of the world is not to be copied hook, line, and sinker as the United Nations would want to suggest.
I have this gas in the ground. Why can't I use it? And I'm unindustrialized. I'm not as industrialized as the other countries, so what do? I think that Nigeria is very well placed to diversify and try to chart its way through its own energy transition in its own way and in a way that will actually decarbonize. I say that because in terms of resources, hydro we have, the sun we have, gas we have. So we're actually well placed to chart a course.
The head of UNIDO Investment and Technology Promotion Office in Nigeria stated that the road to goal zero is long range, adding that 28% of that achievement will come from reduced demand and improved energy efficiency.
We're talking tech here. We're talking tech. This is not brick and mortar. So tech innovation in the clean energy space needs to get funded. Fund startups so that we can have homegrown solutions that will deliver on decarbonization, that will deliver on carbon capture and storage, and even the production of blue hydrogen.
By virtue of the continent's abundant natural resources, Africa stands at an advantage to explore a rich energy mix, a trend that's gradually catching on.
We succeeded in finally making our current, I'll say a stopgard office 100% green. So we're basically providing solar and we're off the grid. Now, going forward, still on that drive, we are moving to what will be our main office in Lagos, and we'll be generating 60% of our electricity.
At the end of the session, participants agreed that Africa must tackle a major issue, that is, addressing industrialization through energy sufficiency. They also agreed that this can be achieved through a collective and decisive agreement on a path to a sustainable energy future.
We'll bring you more highlights from the recently concluded 6th Nigeria International Energy Summit. But that's after the break. Stay with us.
What do we do at NNPC? Since inception as the National Oil Company of Nigeria, our mandate has been to serve the nation by regulating the oil and gas sector and meeting the energy needs of over 200 million people. Over the years, we have invested in tomorrow's leaders and contributed to the development of communities across the nation. We have grown a network of over 500 service stations. We are the driving force behind the constantly growing Nigerian economy. With an efficient distribution network servicing all parts of the country, we ensure the highest quality standards in our crude refining processes. Nigeria boasts of immense oil and gas reserves which we explore in commercial quantities, providing endless opportunities for economic development. As we drilled for oil, we discovered vast amounts of gas, up to 200 trillion scoop. By harnessing gas, we have reduced gas flaring and invested in liquefaction plants, shipping gas across the globe. Our energy footprint is remarkable. We supply gas to the domestic market for power generation, reaching all across Nigeria. Powering everything, anywhere, and everywhere. NNPC, energy for today, energy for tomorrow.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. You're watching Energy and You, and we're still featuring highlights from the 6th Nigeria International Energy Conference, which took place in Abuja. To maximize Nigeria's gas potential, the Decade of Gas was launched in 2021 with the objective of using gas as an enabler of national industrialization, economic prosperity, and reducing energy poverty. To further assess the viability of these objectives and its impacts so far on the Nigerian economy and energy space, a day was set aside at the recently concluded Nigeria International Energy Summit to discuss the various gas development projects that have been embarked upon in the last decade. This is more relevant at a time that the resource has been accepted as Nigeria's transition fuel to carbon-free energy.
It is no longer news that Nigeria has over 200 million cubic feet of natural gas reserves, with the potential to expand to 600 trillion cubic feet of gas. At various sessions with a focus on Nigeria's decade of gas, attracting needed investment to unlock and maximize its potential was brought to the fore.
The PIA still continues to remain a big enabler for us to do all this. And we have renewed our vision to be a dynamic global energy company of choice. We have huge opportunities still on tap. In fact, in the near future, we'll be needing over $50 billion to unlock the investment potential in our nation oil and gas industry.
With a global campaign to attain net zero emission by 2060, investments in fossil fuels are dwindling while Africa grapples with energy poverty. The board chairperson of NNPC Limited, Senator Marjorie Okadigbo, gives a clear picture of the dilemma in the investment space.
The dilemma for investment in fossil fuels is real. The quest for energy transition has curtailed investments, but current energy crisis has significantly supported investments. Should we continue the investment needed to meet the demand, or do we succumb to the fear of having the investment worthless in future and push insufficient funds into the fossil fuel industry? Where exactly does that leave investors?
If we don't do something now, at the end of the day, the solution will be dictated to us. And so we have the opportunity to take charge and actually plot out how we're going to manage our own version of this energy transition, plan it and execute it ourselves.
For delegates in this room, it is time to look inward to resolve Africa's dilemma with investments in fossil fuel. They prefer solutions on how to attract the limited investment available for a gas sector with numerous investment opportunities.
What do I think is the investment gap dilemma? I think two things is focusing internally to solve for the problems that we have across the value chain. The second thing is, I think, putting our money and our time where our mouth is, and I'm very encouraged that people like Tony Elumelu, Femi Otedola are investing. So that shows, that fine, there may be an international gap, but there's locals that are sort of getting involved. The third thing is really going to be around governance. How transparent are you in the way that you run your business? And how do you involve all the different stakeholders to ensure that you protect and you deliver value for them?
What we're finding increasingly important is organizations are first looking at things around the areas of diversity, equity, and inclusion. They're looking at your corporate governance structures. They're looking at how you operate. So that is really very important. And once you do that, then you start thinking about who can provide funding for you. What do we look at? We look at partnering financing now. Whether you provide the best services doesn't necessarily mean we're going to engage you. We're looking at partners that are willing to work with us on structured financing of projects.
Poised to facilitate a shift to a gas-based economy to foster economic growth and industrialization, NNPC Limited reiterates why Nigeria is the investment destination of choice and the company a formidable partner in progress.
Our key ongoing projects also include the 2.2 BCF AKK pipeline project from Ajaokuta, Kaduna, Kano, currently under construction, which has the capacity to deliver gas to the planned Abuja, Kaduna, Kano power plants and to existing and new gas-based projects along the corridor of AKK pipeline. For the gas export market, the ongoing LNG Train 7 will expand Nigeria's LNG production capacity to about 30 million tons per annum. And this, in addition to planned Nigeria-Morocco and Trans-Sahara gas pipeline projects, will supply gas to sub-regional African countries and subsequently to Europe.
With numerous opportunities in Nigeria's gas sector for different categories of players to partake in, NNPC Limited's main target in the decade of gas is to sustain and increase its aggressive development and transmission projects to ensure affordable and clean energy for consumers.
Now, as part of attaining a sustainable energy future, offshore energy, logistics and economic zones formed part of discussions at the 6th International Energy Summit. Now, offshore energy isn't a common term in Nigeria's oil and gas space, in spite of its huge potential. For participants at this session, understanding sustainability in Nigeria's blue economy comes first. Take a look.
With the theme, Partnerships and Energy Transformation, participants were poised to examine the future of offshore energy, marine and logistics, including how to apply global shipping standards in port terminal operations. But first, what does sustainability in Nigeria's blue economy mean to these delegates?
It's basically about standards, both safety and operational standards. It's about competence. But most importantly, within the context of energy transition, it's about how we as an industry enable the oil and gas industry to, within this environment of energy transition, within this environment of net zero and carbon, carbon emission, how do we enable to ensure that that sector not only remains competitive, but remains relevant for the future? And that, to me, is what sustainability is really all about.
For NNPC, we're engaged in the entire energy value chain, is to ensure that the decisions we make today are decisions that will guarantee the sustainability of the energy sector for our children.
While opinions on sustainability in Nigeria's blue economy varies from person to person, the goal remains the same: operating an efficient blue economy for a financial and sustainable energy future. For these to happen, panelists prefer ideas on issues that must be tackled head-on.
Paramount on achieving sustainable blue economy, there must be a good governance. Good governance must be at the front burner. I always call this as the enabling triangle. First of all, you have a good governance. How do you identify and see, or you see the key performance indicators in good governance? It's the policy formulation, interventionary policies. So government must have a very deliberate policies to ensure that they target maximization and sustainable energy as well as the blue economy.
If we could just have a listening public sector, right, that's really determined to engage and take on board that feedback, right, and deploy. So it's not just to say that we're engagement, stakeholder engagement, but you're taking the feedback, you're acting on it, you're bringing on more of the expertise to say, help us to achieve it, because there's a lot. And I think Ms. Ella said that earlier, that are we ready to support government? So it's not just placing a demand on government, but are we ready to support them to get us to where we want them to be? And I think that we can have that if there's authenticity of purpose and there's genuineness in just wanting to really, give us that ideal scenario and ideal situation.
One more thing that we can add to that collaboration mix is the community.
Okay.
Let's not take those guys for granted. Those guys own that project with all of us. It's not them and just us. It's us together. They're also a stakeholder. If you let those guys out of the bag, we'll be in deeper problems than now. So I like the public sector conversation. I like the private sector. I like the government. But the community has to be on that table.
There's more. For Irohama Ogbeifun, there's a need for Nigeria to get it right as it gears towards industrialization.
We should be looking at what sort of new technology can be deployed moving forward that makes the process more environmentally responsible. Because earlier in one of the panels, I can't remember the gentleman who made the statement, he said Africa is the lowest emitter. He said the only reason why we're emitting less is because we're not producing anything, we're just consuming.
Yeah.
So by the time we start producing, if we don't do it responsibly, then we're just going to be another China.
Yeah.
The second pillar should be security. You can achieve anything without security. So definitely, if you want to achieve a sustainable blue economy as well as sustainable energy, the issue of security must be in the front burner. I'm glad to announce that, last year around this time, we have been battling on the issue of maritime insecurity, whereby attacks continues to happen. But from 2001 to about a month ago, we have been celebrating zero attack on the issues of maritime insecurity.
To maintain the successes recorded so far, the Chief Strategy and Sustainability Officer at NNPC Limited says the community must come first.
We are putting together very robust initiatives, and we will collaborate definitely with the industry. We recognize the fact that each industry player has his own sustainability plans, but for the local community, it's imperative that we work together to address the ecological disaster that we are all confronted with today.
The panel also highlighted the need to develop an African maritime security strategy and reduce turnaround time for vessels in order to unlock growth.
That's all on Energy and You this week. I'm Ehusa Higumbo. Join us again next week for another interesting episode. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.